Did Paul McCartney die in 1966 in a car accident? I couldn't tell you for sure, but there is a lot of evidence pointing to this possibility. I'll put a link in the description below to this article here. Paul McCartney's death in 1966 goes much deeper than an MI5 replacement operation. There's a couple videos in this article which shows some of the evidence. Years prior to the Millennium Report website going online, one of our readers conducted exhaustive research into the Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy. It is in fact a real conspiracy because of the number of willing participants who, by necessity, had to participate in it for order to it be successful for almost 50 years. So they're showing side-by-side images of before and after 66. However, only one element has been missing over the past 49 years, and that is a member of the Beatles stepping forward to tell the unvarnished truth. And now appears that this little secret has been finally told by Ringo Starr. Certainly with the death of his bandmates, except Paul, of course, the burden of this secret became greater for him to carry alone as the years wore on. The newsprint piece shown above well captures the respective roles of the four Beatles. What it fails to point out is that Ringo Starr was not only the drummer, he was the heartbeat of the band, as all drummers are. It now appears that the true story about Paul is Ringo's to tell, or else the heartbeat would become increasingly labored by the sheer weight or the harder to hide truth. The exhaustive research conducted over several years did produce an extraordinary amount of evidence pointing to the great likelihood that the original Paul McCartney did leave the Beatles circa 1966. There is now a massive body of forensic proof, anecdotal testimony, scientifically photograph assessment, comparative voice analysis, circumstantial evidence, and on the internet which supports Ringo Starr's alleged revelations. The British MI5 also announced an investigation to determine if an impostor could have indeed posed 48 years as a member of the Order of the British Empire, Sir James Paul McCartney, during official ceremonies involving Queen Elizabeth II. Surely it was MI5 which coordinated the entire cover-up, since they were best positioned to ensure that the conspiracy of silence would stick for so many years. As for why the Beatles agreed to go along with the cover-up scheme since 1966, the answer, especially if you were living during the 60s and had sisters who could sing every Beatles song with perfection, it's quite obvious. Paul McCartney's death would have been triggered an unprecedented shock to his millions of young and often delirious female fans around the entire world. For a much better explanation of just how traumatic such a shocking revelation would have been in 1966, the following true story is presented for the reader's edification. So read all this, how people were fanatics. They would go into spontaneous releases. Women would urinate themselves at the concerts and just flip out. People were fanatics. They were crazy over these people. The replacement of Paul McCartney, why and by whom? The real Paul McCartney left the world scene on 66 is an absolute certainty for those initiated into this particular line of inquiry and investigation. The only question relates to why MI5, Military Intelligence Section 5, arranged for his removal, and exactly who did they replace him with. So the Beatles led the British invasion bands out of all these, from Britain, Great Britain, the Nirvana wasn't in the Doors, but they were in the top of the charts back in the 60s. Facebook.com removes original reference to Paul's death on Google, which appeared on Ringo Starr's personal Facebook page. Former Beatle Ringo Starr claims a real Paul McCartney died in '66 and was replaced by a look-alike. Now the look-alike, when Paul died, we all panicked, claims Ringo, obviously very emotional. We didn't know what to do, and Brian Epstein, our manager, suggested that we hire Billy Shears as a temporary solution. It was supposed to only last a week or two, but time went by and nobody seemed to notice, so we kept playing along. Billy turned out to be a pretty good musician, and he was able to perform almost better than Paul. The only problem was that he couldn't get along with John at all. William Shears Campbell, who goes by Billy Shears, does indeed disappear from records in 1966. No traces of him can be found after Paul's alleged death. We felt guilty about the deception, added Ringo Starr. We wanted to tell the world the truth, but we were afraid of the reactions it would provoke. We thought the whole planet was going to hate us for all the lies we had told, so we kept lying but sending subtle cues to relieve our consciousness. When the first rumors finally began about the whole thing, we felt very nervous and started fighting a lot with each other. At some point it was too much for John, and he decided to leave the band. At age 74, Ringo Starr is the only surviving member of the band besides Paul McCartney, and he was afraid the deception would never be revealed. Then there was this DNA test that was done when a woman supposedly had a child with Paul McCartney. In 1962, he had an affair with a German woman, Erika Wohlers, and had a child with him, and then there was a DNA test supposedly to prove if he was or wasn't the father. So read through this whole article, watch these videos, and then see what you think. Say, it's hard to sometimes these conspiracies go deeper than what it seems from the outside, but the more you dig, the more you see that there are some inconsistencies. There's actually some photos on the internet that the car that he was driving at the time wrecked. It was totaled. But do some research about the link in the video below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and have a great day, my friend.